Alberta Primetime with Micheal Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on the Premier taking Alberta's pipeline push to Ottawa. But first, striking teachers.
Teachers are tired of being told to do more with less. We're tired of a public education system that is treated like an inconvenient cost instead of a valued investment for our future.
More than 50,000 Alberta teachers are now off the job. Labor action impacting the education of more than 700,000 students in public, separate, and francophone schools across the province. And it follows teachers overwhelmingly rejecting the government's latest offer, including a 12% pay raise over 4 years and a promise to hire 3,000 more teachers. And for government perspective, we're joined now by the Minister of Finance and President of Treasury Board, Nate Horner. Minister Horner, it's good to see you, sir. Appreciate you giving us a moment to chat about this.
My pleasure. Happy to talk with you.
All right. Now, how much of a push was there from either side for an 11th hour deal?
Honestly, we wanted to not even consider a lockout to see what actually would take place on Monday, with hopes that, a reasonable proposal would be, brought to us over the weekend. But I can say that there's been no formal talks. I think the teams are having some exploratory, conversations, but that's not going to get a deal done.
Okay,
so we weren't close at all.
So then how far apart do you consider the two sides to be, especially, as you just pointed out, there's only been mention of exploratory conversations to this point?
Well, I'd say pretty far, considering everything that, I know and don't know. And I would correct you, Mr. Higgins, in your kind of opening remarks. It wasn't the government's offer. The government accepted the ATA's offer. That's what the teachers voted against resoundingly. From our position, we need to hear from the ATA formally about what they would like to see happen, and then we can see if we can bargain to a reasonable landing place. But until that happens, we're kind of stuck right now. Teachers are vocally saying what they would like to see. I would hope that they're communicating that to the ATA, and that the ATA gets back to TIBA and the bargaining team formally.
Okay, so what do you need to hear from teachers at this point? I've heard the term reasonable proposal. What does a reasonable proposal look like to you?
Well, I think that they've clearly outlined the issues with the system, and I'm not here to debate those and say that they don't exist. We're hearing lots of concerns about complexity, class size. It's about coming to the table in a way that we can reasonably address those things. We're already building schools as fast as possible. We made a large commitment that was asked for by the ATA around the hiring of 3,000 teachers. We've made some other commitments around the hiring of educational assistants that don't really land at this table of bargaining, but we know will help address the challenges in the classroom. So we need the teachers to talk to the ATA and the ATA to come back to the table. We can't bargain with 50,000 individuals.
Where do you draw the line? For instance, teachers looking for a hard cap on the number of students per classroom.
Well, we need things that are practically possible. 4.4% population growth. We're not responsible in many ways for the inflood of population that Alberta's seen. 2 to 3% is reasonable. 4.4% is unheard of. So the first things first, we have to commit to what's practically achievable, and then we need to deal with some of the other issues that are driving complexity. We're hearing about aggression in classrooms. There may be ways to approach these things in a more targeted way that addresses the needs of teachers.
As finance minister, how concerned are you about how this strike might end up impacting Alberta's economy?
Well, the economy's not in a great place anyways. Alberta's doing better than the rest of the country. But, as the Governor of the Bank of Canada said, if the CUSMA exemptions disappear, there's no way we're not going into a recession. If we're able to keep those, we may avoid recession, just barely. I have a 7.4% unemployment rate currently. That's going to stay at those sustained levels for at least another year. And so all of the pressures we're seeing in education, we're also seeing them present themselves elsewhere. Health, the social safety net. So everyone's hyper-focused on education currently, but there's these pressures across the system that also need to be dealt with.
Okay, speaking of pressures, how long are you prepared to let this situation with teachers linger before you look at options? Binding arbitration, government legislated contract.
The fact is they have a right to strike. I do believe they have an obligation to bargain. So I do hope they come back to the table. But the term you may hear me use and the Premier is the test for a hammer like that from government is if we deem there's irreparable harm happening, whether that's to the long-term educational prospects of Alberta's children, whether that's to the economy at large. That's the test before you can, consider proceeding with a hammer like that. We're back in session. Speech from the Thrones of the 23rd. We'll be back in session in earnest on the 27th. I don't think 2 days into a strike is irreparable harm. I don't know if that passes the bar, but if we get to the end of the month and nothing's changed, and especially if the ATA hasn't returned to the table formally, then we'll have to consider everything.
Okay, I'm going to squeeze in one more quick one. How prepared are you to deal or contend with dialogue now building around the degree your government publicly funds private education, the construction of private schools, and how that factors into this strike?
Well, I think it's something always willing to discuss. Alberta does fund a little differently than the other provinces. Right now, I'm looking at kids in classrooms. What's the most reasonable way to get more kids in classroom with reasonable class sizes? Some of those alternative paths definitely take pressure off the public system as well. So I do think you have to look at them. You have to look at the system very holistically. I'm from remote rural Alberta. There's no options here but the public schools, or else I guess you teach your own kids. So definitely from a personal perspective, I very much would like to see our kids back in classrooms in the public schools.
All right. We'll leave it there for time. Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Finance Minister Nate Horner.